Allah. Um,
So is Nuruddin Zengi what gave rise to Salahuddin al-Ayyubi? Is that how
yeah,
did Salahuddin come about?
interesting thing happened. Yeah, interesting thing happened. In fact, that so um, once Nuruddin's father, Imaduddin Zengi, used to make these raids against the powerhouse in Baghdad, and it's all like dynastic territorial expansionism, and he was caught. He was caught, and no, actually, sorry, he wasn't caught, but he was on the run, and on the run, it's Salahuddin's father, Najmuddin Ayyub, before Salahuddin's even born, that gave him safe passage. He keeps him in his home or something like that. Then he hides him. Then he sends him off to back to Aleppo. I think it was Aleppo, and so it's interesting because we don't know why he did that, because it was against his interest to do that. Because Najmuddin Ayyub is the ruler of Karak on behalf of course, the Khalif in Baghdad. But he, for some reason, maybe it's because of brotherly love or something, he kind of protected him. So what happened in 1137? Uh, Salahuddin's brother Shirkuh gets into some trouble. I think he kills a Christian scribe or something. Happens like that, and he's punished. He's punished, and so he and his brother have to leave. Uh, um, uh, and so in leaving, that's the day that Salahuddin was born. On the night that they left was the night that Salahuddin, in fact, was born. And it's so interesting that Imaduddin then invites them both to Aleppo as a kind of way of repaying the favor that he did for him, those years back when he gave him safe passage and sheltered him from the from the from the from the people of Baghdad. So it's interesting, therefore, that those events happen. But in any case, therefore, what that means is that Salahuddin is being raised in that community of Nuruddin Zengi, and he's taking advantage of the kind of the environment, the atmosphere of Islamic learning and piety and praying and building of mosques and madrasas and so on and so forth, but also to take part in those campaigns against the Crusaders. And Salahuddin therefore becomes very important to Nuruddin, in being someone within his army fighting, for him, as someone who would kind of access to the scholars that Nuruddin Zengi was around as well. So you might say kind of as a kind of a mentor, for him in that sense. And then of course Nuruddin Zengi uses Salahuddin and his uncle Shirkuh to on the one hand, firstly, it was to reinstate the Fatimid Wazir Shawar in Egypt, because it was believed at that time that the Fatimids are less of a threat than the Crusaders were, and at least if Egypt, which is this powerhouse, is in safe hands, it gives the Crusaders less of a chance, because you have this very important port of Damiat, that if you have access to the ports, then you have access to the countries. And so but what happened is that when they did that, then they were betrayed by they were betrayed. They had an alliance with the Crusaders against Salahuddin, and against Nuruddin, and so therefore the second time round he says you have to just go and destroy them now. In any case, 1171, the last Fatimid Khalif al-Adid dies, and then Egypt becomes the Sunni country that it becomes, and Salahuddin becomes the ruler of Egypt. And then Nuruddin is going to die 1174, and then Salahuddin becomes the ruler of Syria as well. And so he builds his largest castle in Egypt, and his focus, thereafter, Salahuddin's focus was to kind of consolidate that great work of Nuruddin Zengi for those many years in fighting against the Crusaders, in inspiring the Muslims to have this sense of
Unifying the
commitment,
Ummah.
yeah, unification, remaining pious in one's endeavor, to do that. And so it kind of keeps up that model of goodness as a pious Muslim ruler about him. At the same time, of course, he's also fighting other Muslim groups. You might say, I mean, from their point of view, rebellious groups who are kind of inhibiting that path of like unification or resistance against the Crusaders. So he's fighting them a lot as well. But mostly, within the last 5 years of his life, his effort focuses heavily towards the Crusaders. Um, and so, in doing that, he realizes there has to be, number one, maintaining of that unity between Aleppo and Damascus, unification of Asham, of Egypt as well. And he has amazing help from diplomats like Al-Qadi Al-Fadil. In fact, he says that I haven't won anything except through the pen of Qadi al-Fadil, because he would invite all these poets and diplomats and these important people from all over the world. I mean, Hijaz and Egypt and Syria and Yemen, and they're all coming and joining him in his army, and poets, used for that cause. Remember, poetry was the most vocal, most arousing literary vehicle, of that time, and so that was something very important for them. And so Salahuddin therefore becomes, once Nuruddin Zengi dies, he becomes the key ruler,